What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. For those of you that haven't watched my videos before, my name is Dean-Bryson. For those of you that are returning to my channel, I haven't posted a video in quite a long time, but I wanted to come on and give you a little bit of a life update. The last video that I posted was about 6 months ago. And I've just been reflecting quite a lot on the last couple of years. The first video I ever did on this channel was 28 years old, broke, living with parents, something like that. And I started this channel with the intent to really be honest, to be authentic, to be vulnerable, but in a way that is empowering to you guys out there, not in a sort of victimhood, poor me kind of way, but in a, this is what is happening for me and this is what I'm trying to do to progress and to improve my life. So if we go back to 2 years ago when I posted that video, I was living with parents. It was during the pandemic. I just come back from Malaga in Spain, where I was living for 6 months, and I had no real idea about what I was going to do with my life, how I was going to put myself into a better position. Anyway, from that point, I became a personal trainer. I was a trainer at one of the biggest gyms in Cambridge. Started to grow my brand, to grow my reputation, to improve my network and get to know lots of people. And I started to become fairly successful within that gym, enough to make a full-time income through personal training. Anyway, that situation, that position fell through for me. I lost a little bit of faith in the management. I don't want to go too much into what happened there, but I ended up leaving that gym and moving to a different gym, another very big commercial gym, and same sort of thing. It took me a while to get myself established in that gym, but I got myself to a fairly well-established point. I was starting to really attract the kind of guys that I was wanting to work with, which was guys that were wanting to build muscle, to get in shape, that had that drive, that motivation to improve and to succeed. And at the same time, I was starting to get into red pill content. I was watching Andrew Tate. I was starting to post content that I thought would be helpful for my followers and the audience and the kind of guys that I was wanting to attract into my business. And at that very same time, I got suspended for my content, and I chose to resign from my position as a personal trainer there, which was a very big and hard decision for me to make. I take obviously full responsibility for the content that I posted. And honestly, at the time, I didn't think that there would be massive ramifications and consequences to posting that content, because I'd never been cancelled before. I didn't know that it was likely or even possible to happen, but it did. So I got suspended, and I chose to walk away, to not get involved in a long legal battle. I didn't really have the energy to fight, and maybe looking back, I should have stood up for myself. Maybe I should have got involved with legal stuff, but honestly, I couldn't really afford to go down that route. So I ended up going back to bartending, back to bar work, and it's had quite a massive negative impact on my life, on my confidence, on my self-belief, because I started to, feel like I was making progress, feel like I was on the verge of becoming more successful, and then had it all kind of taken away from me. And I wanted to jump on really on today's video and talk a little bit about how, as a man, it's a struggle. Even if you are good looking, even if you're in good shape, even if you're intelligent and you've got charisma, life can still be a massive struggle. You know, you're still going to go through periods in your life where things are not going well for you. And I think especially as you're trying to ascend to the top of the mountain, you're trying to become high value, you're learning things about yourself, you're learning things about the world, you're having your eyes opened up to what is actually the true reality and not what you've been brainwashed into believing. That makes you a lot more, it makes you quite angry, but it also makes you more vulnerable to your emotions. It makes you more vulnerable to females and female nature and all the rest of it, because you're in a more conscious state where what you're learning is something that you're trying to put into practice. You're trying to use your experience and use the knowledge that you've gained to put that into action, right? And whenever you're first starting anything, whether it's, you know, you've learned a little bit about game and female attraction, and then you're going to go out into the real world and start trying to use that, what you're going to experience more than anything is failure and rejection. Maybe you've been in a position where you haven't really been putting yourself out there. You haven't really been trying to build your income. You haven't really been trying to be successful in business. You haven't really been trying to attract women. You haven't really been taking any action forward. So when you first start to really take action and you notice that you're experiencing a lot of failure, a lot of rejection, obviously that can hit your confidence quite hard. And the main reason I wanted to come on and talk about that is the fact that you see a lot of guys out there that are influencers that are really successful, and a lot of it they talk about the hardships, the adversity that they went through to get to where they are, but often they're not documenting that journey in real time. And you know, I've had periods in the last year or two where I've felt quite depressed. You know, I haven't really wanted to get out of bed, haven't had much motivation to do normal things, you know, but I've still been getting myself into the gym. I've still looked after the basics of my life that keep me in a mentally and emotionally healthy place. Like I go for walks a lot, I listen to music, I like being outside. You know, as I've said, I like make sure that I train, making sure that I'm being as responsible as I can be with my money and with my finances. But at the same time, I've experienced a lot of stagnation, you know, because I had that momentum going and then that momentum slowed down. Something, you know, obviously happens, things happen in life, whether it's, you know, you lose your job or someone breaks your heart, or there's something that happens that is naturally going to damage you and take away your momentum. And it's important as a man to not allow those failures or those difficulties to define you as a person, and really focus on the future and what you're trying to achieve and on your goals. And so, you know, I titled this video 30 years old, broke, depressed and sexless. Obviously I've talked a little bit about the depression, and I don't really like to label it as depression, because I believe that if you label it as depression, it defines you and keeps you in a place where you're not taking responsibility for your own mental health and moving forward towards becoming more mentally and emotionally healthy. But you can also feel depressed, obviously, and I have felt depressed over the last 6 months, year, or whatever. When it comes to being broke, I've spent most of my adult life trying to, become successful in my business, but obviously doing that alongside jobs that are not particularly well paid, but also not particularly satisfying, and that can have an impact as well on your mental health and all that sort of stuff. So it's the reality is that it takes a long time to become successful, to build yourself into the kind of man who's actually going to achieve success. And it's daily work that you have to do with yourself, and part of it is being kind to yourself, but also pushing yourself to find that balance between working hard, but also on enjoying yourself and enjoying the journey to become successful. And as Andrew Tate says, it's a lot of the time it's about the sacrifices that you're willing to make in your life to become successful and what you truly want and desire in your life. You don't have to become a billionaire. You don't have to drive 17 supercars. You don't need to have all of these women around you to have a meaningful, rich and fulfilling life. If you do want that for yourself, then that's fine, and you need to understand what you have to do to get to that point, and that is going to require a great deal of sacrifice and work ethic. As you can tell from Andrew Tate, he works ridiculously hard to be in that position. But if you don't want that life, and you have to really reflect on yourself and what is important to you and what your values are, because some people can be in that position that Andrew Tate is in and be completely miserable. Obviously, he's been cancelled, he's been demonized, he's paid a price for living that lifestyle and for being as vocal as he's been. So you need to know as a person what you want in your life and what you're willing to risk and what you're willing to go through in order to get the kind of life that you want. So going on a bit of a ramble there, but the point is, that I've learned a lot about myself in the past couple of years. I've learned, firstly, that what I post online, the content that I post, is going to have consequences for me. It's going to have real consequences. I'm glad that I stepped away from that position as a personal trainer, because now it's given me more freedom to speak my mind. But I also know at the same time, I'm posting this video on YouTube, I'm posting content on Instagram. You should go follow me on there at Strong Minded Joe. But when I'm posting content online, I'm aware of the fact that I could be cancelled at any point, and that is gonna result in me having to start again on a completely different channel, on a completely different platform, which I'm obviously willing to do. I think if you build anything from it, if I build my Instagram to 10k, I know that I can build on another platform, but I'm not necessarily wanting to do that. And I need to be consciously aware of what I'm posting and the impact that it's going to have, not only on my audience and the people that are watching it, but also the impact it's going to have for me in my life. So whenever you're doing something in your life, you need to understand that there are going to be consequences to your actions, and that's part of being a man and taking responsibility for what you do. Now, it doesn't mean that you should be afraid of taking risks and of speaking your mind and standing up for what you believe in, but you have to also be aware that there's going to be consequences to doing that. And I think that's one of the main things that I've learned over the last year or so, is that yes, it's good to stand up for what you believe in, yes, it's good to be vocal, but when shit hits the fan, when there are consequences to doing that, then you have to also take responsibility. And I think that's something that I've learned, that I've improved in myself, is to not allow myself to fall into victim mode where I'm like, oh well, I got cancelled and I got all my income taken away from me and all of this. And I think I was stuck in that place for quite a long time, and I can go back to why that's the case, what happened to me in my childhood and all the rest of it, but that isn't going to solve anything by going really into those past experiences, understanding why it is that I reacted in that way. The most important thing is to really take control, take responsibility for my emotions, to not allow myself to become a victim, to keep moving forward, to let go of that experience, to let go of what happened, and to set new goals, to create that momentum, to focus on the things that bring me happiness, bring me joy, the things that I value, and move forward from that point. As it comes to being sexless, I spent a period when I first got back into bar work after being cancelled, where I was being very frivolous, going out all the time. I was hooking up quite a bit with different girls, and it was fun for that period, but I also kind of understood that it wasn't really bringing me any long-term value into my life. It wasn't helping me to become successful in my business. It certainly wasn't helping me to build my finances. It was making me, I was getting attached to girls that weren't necessarily the best thing for me at that point, and it was causing me to become more emotionally unstable, whereas what I really should have been focusing on is becoming more emotionally stable, like refinding my feet, bringing the focus back to myself, working really hard in the gym, working really hard on my business, on my finances, and that's obviously what I'm doing now. But there's a lot of you guys out there that are sexless as well, and you really need to understand that if you're not in a position in your life where you're happy and the life that you're living is of high quality, then you shouldn't be so desperate to bring someone else into that. Because I know a lot of you, when you're desperate for sex, it's not necessarily you're desperate for actually the physical act of sex. You're desperate for the intimacy, the affection, all of that sort of stuff. And build yourself into the kind of man who doesn't rely on that for his happiness and for his well-being. Because if you're in the gym, you're looking after yourself, you're hitting your goals, you're focused, you're building whatever you're trying to build, you don't actually need that in your life. And that's when you're going to be in a position where you're going to be a lot more attractive to women anyway. You're going to attract women that are of a higher quality, that might potentially turn into a girlfriend or even a wife. And you might not necessarily want that right now. You might want to be out there having fun and getting drunk, and it's all right to do that to a certain level, but just don't allow that to become your sole focus in life, because as I've said, it's only going to bring you some short-term fulfillment. It's not going to result in you having a happy, meaningful life in the long term. So it's very important for you to find that balance. And if you're in a position where you're constantly getting rejected by girls, none of them are attracted to you, don't feel attractive, then I would suggest that your main focus should be on improving yourself, putting yourself into a position where you are more attractive to women, and working from there. So yeah, that's all from me. Quite a big update. Hope you're all well. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next one.